If you have a history of experiencing any types of trauma, whether that be emotional, physical, sexual, relational, spiritual, and you've lived for years with chronic anxiety symptoms, depressive symptoms, found it challenging to develop or maintain healthy connection with others, to regulate your emotions, this video is going to provide you with some really simple yet practical yet scientific strategies that you can use to start to shift out of these patterns. Hi, my name is John Hawkins Jr. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, certified trauma specialist, and co-founder of Hawkins Counseling Center. In this video, I'm going to use some of the strategies developed by Dr. Stephen Porges. He's a psychiatrist and neuroscientist and developer of the polyvagal theory. He has a book called The Polyvagal Theory, subtitled The Neurophysiological Foundations of Emotions, Attachment, Communication, and Self-Regulation. And he integrates some information from neuroscience, from evolutionary psychology, showing these different defense systems we have neurologically as human beings and how trauma can keep us locked chronically in these defensive responses, whether that be, hyperstimulation from our sympathetic nervous system, which gives you that fight or flight response, or like overactivation of our parasympathetic nervous system, which puts people into a freeze state or different dissociative levels. And what he shows is that this is really driven predominantly by the vagal nerve, which is the longest nerve in the body. It's associated obviously with trauma, with his work, but also with immunity, some other health things, our attachment systems of how we develop and maintain connections. And we have our autonomic nervous system, which you could kind of just think of as our automatic nervous system. So it operates outside conscious control, but there are some conscious things I'm going to show you in this video that you can start to take control of the system as well. There used to be considered two branches, which are the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic, which sympathetic takes energy up, parasympathetic brings it down. I always use the example of a parachute. Help me remember that in grad school, that parasympathetic comes down. He broadens it out, and some other neuroscientists now, to three branches, which are the sympathetic, the parasympathetic, and the social engagement system. So he looks at the vagus nerve with three evolutionary layers. So there's what he calls the old vagus, which is referred to as the dorsal vagus response. So this is when we go into this shutdown, freeze, submissive, severe dissociative state in life-threatening circumstances, or overwhelming experiences, just way too much of it. Then there's the middle vagus, which he refers to as the ventral vagus. And so then that one really triggers and activates the social engagement system. So in environments we feel safe, that becomes activated. In times of threat, if that's a possibility we can access as the reach for secure attachment or connection, then the ventral vagal nerve will stimulate that response towards that. And then there's the new vagus that he refers to, which is the ventral vagus complex. So this is an even more involved level of the ventral vagus nerve that gives us more nuanced ability to regulate and experience a broader range of emotions, more complex social behaviors, so we're even more adept at developing relationships and maintaining them, for dealing with our emotions at a more effective level. So you can see why that ventral vagus and the ventral vagus complex is so important to be getting stimulated and having access to if we're really going to live a fulfilling and meaningful life. All right, so now I'm going to walk you through 6 polyvagal exercises. So these are things that you can do to start to stimulate the ventral vagal pathway of the vagus nerve in your brain and start to get the benefit of what it is able to provide for you. So again, like so many things with depression and anxiety, in my opinion, working with thousands of people, are not disorders, but manifestations of things that are disordered. So again, whether I'm in that chronic sympathetic response or the chronic dorsal vagal shutdown, it was adaptive to that moment, I needed it, but now I'm stuck and frozen in it, and I can't get access to more adaptive things today. So the first of them is diaphragmatic breathing. So some of these things you may be familiar with, or you may even think could be silly or cheesy, but the neuroscience under it is that the ones I'm going to show you, they actually activate that vagal nerve and stimulate that ventral vagal pathway. I've also found getting people to do these things, even though they're a great resource that's free of charge and you can use, are highly effective, most people don't end up doing it with any consistency. So sometimes there can be a part of the personality that's resistant to it for some reason that can be identified and cleared. More often than not, what I find is people either engage in all or nothing thinking, so then I have to do all 6, or I have to do all 6 perfectly, and if I can't do that or won't do that, then I don't want to do it at all. So Any level of these things are going to have a positive impact. So you do not need to do them perfectly, or you don't have to be perfectly consistent either to get the benefit. Just start where you can start. You don't need to do all 6. Just do the ones that you really resonate with. So let's say the first one I'm going to walk you through is the diaphragmatic breathing. If that isn't something that you just, for whatever reason, you're resistant to, or I just don't like doing it, pick one of the other 5. Even if you did one of the other 5 or a couple of the other 5 consistently, however you get that activation, for me, it doesn't matter, you're getting the activation. So diaphragmatic breathing, I'll walk you through these real simply and briefly. Place your hand on your chest, then your hand on your stomach. Then what you're gonna wanna do is breathe in slowly nasally until you feel your stomach expand, and then even slower, exhale orally. So an example would be like this. So one of the things that is doing is activating that vagal nerve and your parasympathetic nervous system, which again brings energy down. Another thing I'll say real briefly is use these when you're not in a highly activated state. Now maybe some of you have chronic anxiety, so I've always got that hum there to whatever degree. But if the first time you start to use these is in the middle of a panic attack, they're probably not going to be that effective. There's other interventions that I'll teach people for that, and we'll do videos on those things. But practice these 2-3 minutes a day. You can do this multiple times a day if you want to get more benefit. But it's very simple, but there's science behind it. And you may also find that the first time I do this, my chest expands and my abdomen doesn't. So then I wasn't even aware that I'm shallow breathing a lot. I'm breathing more in this, fight or flight state, and I could start to take conscious control over that. And then I could start to work a few times so I could get the diaphragmatic going. And then that becomes more and more fluid, and I start to notice as I do that, I'm getting calmer. Another little wrinkle or add-on for that would be doing a double nasal and then the slow exhale. I like that one a lot better. That's probably one of the fastest ways to activate the nerve in your parasympathetic system. And example would be like this, the same thing I just showed you with the diaphragmatic, but when you get proficient at that, this is probably the one I use most. I can feel just a cold, calming wave come over my entire upper body, from my shoulders down through my chest and stomach. And if you did that for 2 or 3 minutes, believe me, you're gonna be so calm and relaxed. Now, again, some of you may have parts that are of your personality that are threatened by relaxing, calming, because it feels like I'm putting my guard down. You can do these in an environment where there's no one around, and I can just sense the inner openness of resistance. There's always some place I can do it from. Some place that protective part of me typically will allow me to do it somewhere. Like I said, in isolation or something like that, where I don't have to relax and calm down around others if that's too big of a jump for you just yet. The second one is referred to as vocal toning or humming. So here you're going to hum or use a vowel sound like A or O or something like that. And the goal is to get the vibration in my throat and in my chest until that vibration starts to bring a calm feeling, because it is stimulating the vagal nerve, which is the whole point of these exercises. So an example, again, very simplistically, is just and again, you can do these in isolation. It feels so awkward to do them around someone, but I would just sit calmly. I mean, if you press for time and you want to do it while you're walking around, still some benefit, but I just sit in a calm place until you can feel that, or you can, there's various forms of meditation that have been taught over thousands of years that integrate some of these things that even though they didn't have the neuroscience, they knew something was happening to calm people's systems or help integrate different networks like we do, in trauma therapy. Number 3 is gargling. Maybe some of you do this already and didn't know you're activating your vagal nerve. So it's just taking some water typically and gargling with it for a minute or two. And again, the key is to create that vibration in my throat and just keep doing that until you get a calmer feeling. So remember, it's about repetition and consistency, because the more you're activating the ventral vagal nerve, the more you're teaching your vagal nerve to activate. You're creating calm states. Whether it's the calm environment that I'm creating for myself, whether it's this internal state that triggers the vagal nerve, where I start to more and more experience an internal sense of safety, which for many who've gone through childhood developmental traumas, they've rarely experienced, or in some cases never experienced, because their system is so humming and activated chronically. And then in therapy, that's what I'm doing. Clients, like I said, walk in either a lot of times sympathetically activated, so they're very anxious and nervous, or anything they talk about, they just go kind of numb or blank or detach. And so we want to quit this, SNS, sympathetic, or the dorsal vagal shutdown, and start picking that ventral so they can start connecting with me or others as a co-regulator to what they're feeling. The fourth is mindful awareness of body sensations. So if any of you have ever done a mindfulness meditation, it's very similar. Just sit in a calm place, close your eyes, use your breath as a focal point. And again, not perfectly, your head's gonna drift to work or nonsense or the fight you got in last night with your partner. Just keep bringing it back to your breath, and then just slowly scan your body for anywhere of body tension. So let's say if I notice I've got a 3 or 4 in my stomach. So I notice that, and then I do some of that diaphragmatic breathing, whether it's the single or double inhale nasally, until I clear that or really markedly reduce it, come back to my breath, and just repeat that process until as best as I can, I clear out tension in my body. The fifth is facial relaxation. So there's research showing that calm facial muscles send a signal to the nervous system that the environment is safe. So I would sit in a calm place again, close my eyes, notice start with the forehead first and work your way down through to the jaw. So as I try to relax, I do that deep breathing and just keep working on here, just work it way down all the way into the jaw. And again, there's a lot of data showing neurological links between different facial expressions and emotional states. Some of that has recently been challenged, but you can still get the benefit, like I said, that if my body feels calm, the body also tells a story in the way people move. So somebody could be in a totally safe environment, but their body's telling me they don't feel safe, or they're tense, or they're just totally flat and detached. So that's communicating to me what's going on inside them. So being able to either square their shoulders back or sit up and see how that affects their emotional state. But just working progressively on these things, because the whole point of all 6 of these is ventral vagal activation. The more you do that, the better your capacity is going to be to start regulating your emotions. Like I said, develop, maintain connections with others, communicate in a different way, more creativity, problem solving ability, because you're in that, more of an alpha state, which starts to access more and more of what you're capable of. The 6th and final thing is progressive muscle relaxation. So this is the first one I started with when I was in my early 20s. I started getting severe panic attacks and didn't know what they were. So I remember going out, buying every book I could find on panic attacks. I never even heard the term. And this was the first one I would do because my body was so nervous about getting another panic attack and being hypervigilant to anything that could trigger one, that I'm in this tense state all the time. So then it's really just starting again. I like to do mine laying down, were the ones that were most effective to me. And you just start with your toes, tense them as tight as you can, and then relax. And just do a few repetitions of that till you can really notice that relaxation response. Then go up to your calves, then go up to your thighs, then your buttocks and abs, chest, arms, shoulders, face, just kind of work your way up. For many, the body has never fully relaxed. Let's say if you started going through infancy, toddlerhood, and there was all this chaos, domestic violence, different forms of trauma around you, where you're just in a chronic activated sympathetic nervous system response, the body is just not used to being in a relaxed state. So pick out whatever ones you like, just start with something, be as consistent as you can. Any activation of that is going to be beneficial and productive. If you found this valuable, please forward it on to anyone you care about that you feel could use it. If you want any more information, I would definitely highly suggest you read Dr. Porges' book, The Polyvagal Theory. If you'd like to talk to my wife, Bissan, and I about any of these things and get more guidance on them, you can reach us at hawkinscounselingcenter.com anytime. So once again, I hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.